Hello, and welcome back to the Translation Podcast. I'm your host, Daniela, and today we're diving into a fascinating intersection of language, performance, and creativity. My guest is Matt Gallagher, a professional voiceover artist based in Las Vegas, whose voice has brought life to video games, commercials, e-learning platforms, and corporate narrations across the globe. But before he was behind the mic, Matt was deeply immersed in the world of visual arts. He holds a Bachelor of Arts in Drawing and Painting from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and his passion for animation has shaped the way he approaches storytelling through voice. In this episode, we'll explore how his artistic background influences his voice work, how translators and interpreters can break into the voiceover world, and what tools, techniques, and vocal habits can help you sound your best, whether you're narrating, interpreting, or podcasting from home. Matt's blend of creativity, discipline, and technical know-how makes this a must-listen conversation for anyone looking to expand their voice in the multilingual space. Welcome, Matt.
Hi, thank you. I'm really glad to be here.
Glad to have you. Let's get started. Matt, your journey into voiceover is deeply rooted in the arts. You have a Bachelor of Arts in Drawing and Painting
Mhm.
from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And you mentioned that animation holds a special place in your heart. How has your artistic background, especially your passion for animation, shaped your approach to voice acting and the way you bring your characters or narratives to life?
Okay, that's a good question. I'm glad you asked because yeah, initially one of the things I loved about or still love about animation is just kind of bringing something that is inanimate to life. Animation, and voice acting or acting in general has really allowed me to still do that, even though I decided not to pursue it from a visual perspective. Um, I no matter what I do, I can always bring character to a script just because that's just how I approach every script, even if it's something that seems stale. And I say that with quotation marks, stale, like a PSA or a commercial read, because everything can be thought of as like character work. Everything is playing pretend, basically. If I'm reading a commercial job and I'm a 40-year-old dad mowing a lawn, that's I'm not a 40-year-old dad. I don't even have a lawn. So it's something, yeah, everything requires some character work, and at least to the level of getting into that emotion or that vibe, because everything really genuinity and realism is very important.
I love that. You voiced everything from video games and commercials to e-learning and corporate narration. Which genre do you enjoy the most and why?
Um, that's also a good question. Just anything related specifically to character. So what I just said about bringing character to everything. Some things are more tuned towards character, such as like animation or video games. So honestly, I anything related to actually voicing animation, even if it's an explainer video or a what would you call that? Excuse me, like an e-learning guide or anything like that. I enjoy that just because like I know that there's going to physically or visually be a character on screen that will be representative of my voice or the other way around. So I really enjoy anything character, even if it's impressions. If somebody comes to me and says, and this isn't something all voice actors do, but like impressions, it just happens to be like a little niche that I happen to be able to fulfill. If somebody says, I want to like Sonic the Hedgehog for a parody video on YouTube, even if it's a small thing, it's just something I really enjoy just because I'm still a kid at heart, and I really like just getting into those roles and just I feel like my creativity or allowance to play pretend is expanded upon when it's just straight up a character role.
I love that. Um, Would you like to share with us a few titles or genres you animated, just for us to see if we can recognize your voice if we listen to them?
Sure. Um, well, I've done, I guess it's not so much animation, but in terms of recognition, um, if anybody likes to watch like science or history or just documentary style videos on YouTube, I've done quite a bit of that. So there's a few channels. I don't know if you want me to drop the names or not, and if you want, you can edit this out. But uh quite a few of the first, at least the first 10 videos for a channel called Map Pack, MAP, Pack, PACK. I did those, and that's a pretty prolific channel, and it's very educational. I always, what I like about those channels is I learn while I'm reading it. Yeah, I voice for Map Pack. um Currently I voice for a couple of channels. One is the other side of the law. That's the name of the channel, and it's like a crime documentary style channel. And then also Re-Universe, so like REU, like YOU, like you universe. So like, it's like a play on words, universe with the word you, Re-Universe. And that's more sciencey, or well, I guess you could say it's, a lot of it is based on anthropology. So I like that one a lot too. But in regards to like animation or things like that, um there's probably not too much you'd recognize my voice in, just because a lot of the character work that I do, like strictly character work, is like usually parody videos, and it's just from an independent animator just kind of doing it for fun. Um, but Again, going back to the stuff that you might recognize would just be those documentary style channels on YouTube.
Amazing. Well, I'll definitely make sure to share them in the YouTube description,
Okay.
um, and we'll check them out, especially the murder mystery. I think
Yeah.
those are a lot of people's
Yeah,
favorites.
that's right.
Matt, your voice is your business. What daily
hmm
habits or vocal exercises do you do to keep your voice in top shape?
Honestly, just kind of practice scripts and tongue twisters, at least for exercises. Yeah, tongue twisters are helpful simply because enunciation is a big part of it, especially on those like channels when it comes to documentary style kind of things, because you know a lot of them are historical, not just from like one perspective, but like world history. Excuse me, world history. And so enunciation is very important, because sometimes you're going to have stuff that's very local to whoever speaks that language. So, like for instance, if I recorded a video based on the Camorra, or Camorra, which is a crime family in Italy, then it's going to sound a little different to somebody who is an English speaker in the United States versus somebody who's an English speaker in Italy, because I might say Camorra, and here in the States, somebody might just say Camorra. So enunciation is very important, because if you're a local speaker, something's going to sound a little slurred or go unrecognized by somebody who isn't a local speaker of that native speaker of that language, if that makes sense.
I agree, and for us as well in the interpreting space,
hmm
enunciation is very important,
Yeah.
especially when it's not your native language and you have to
hmm
interpret the other way around,
Yeah.
especially in a language that is, not yours, even though you are, bilingual or you have a good command. Enunciation is so important.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of translation, I wanted to ask. Have you ever had to record voiceovers in other languages or little beats in other languages? Or did you collaborate with translators?
So are you asking me if I've like dubbed for stuff like in English, or if I've actually recorded something like I've spoken the other language?
If you recorded some, let's say in English, but then you had some bits in another language as well, and also if you dubbed in another language.
Okay. Yeah, I've never actually like dubbed speaking another language. Everything has been in English, but I do quite often have to read words that are completely foreign to me. Like I'll like kind of going back to the Komora video, or even like Chinese, which is very different from English. There's not very many cognates. Yeah, there'll be cities or just names or titles that are in Mandarin or Canto, and yeah, the enunciation becomes very important. So yeah, I've done some jobs working with I can't say I've ever worked directly with the translators, but usually there will be some notes in the script that kind of give me a guide on how to correctly pronunciate it, because as mentioned before, kind of depending on your audience, what is correct may not sound familiar, and also people who do speak the language, they're going to notice if you aren't saying it properly.
Right, absolutely. And Matt, you mentioned YouTube voiceover for
Mm-hmm.
documentaries and other channels.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, when it comes to AI voices, these are becoming more present in the industry.
Yeah.
It is even, oh, sorry, I think that was really loud. Let me say that question one more time. Someone has a really loud motorcycle. Like,
I
okay.
get it.
Oh my God, that was funny. Let me start again. Matt, you mentioned you're doing YouTube voiceover for
Mm-hmm.
documentaries and other content types. I'm curious, when it comes to AI generated voices that are becoming more and more present in commercials or in other type of content, how do you see the future of voiceover evolving, especially with these synthetic voices and multilingual dubbing tools?
That's a very good question, and that's something I think about a lot. Uh, just forewarning, this will be a semi long-winded answer. Okay, like 2 paragraphs worth. So the way I see it is things that, at the very least, and this is all speculation. I'm not sure because things change really fast. And also, I don't want to sound like AI phobic or anything, because I do like to look towards a future of technology and a hopeful perspective. But things I think that were once streamlined by dealing with the voice actor themselves, be it for revisions or additional takes or repronunciations, or even like business side of things like invoicing, correspondence, etc., can easily become like compartmentalized by the business behind the AI voice. And before you know it, you're kind of being like nickel and dimed for like every single service that's provided to you, whether it's convenient or not. As it is, like, you know, just for example, we already have like service/convenience fees when you're purchasing like a concert ticket. And whether it's in person or online, it's always quote unquote convenient, when convenience is defined by the company providing the ticket. So, I feel that with AI voice, it won't just simply be the AI voice you're getting. You're going to have to deal with all the things that come along with getting voiceover. And so it can easily become very corporate, I guess you could say, or very, um, I don't know how else to say it in a common term other than kind of just being nickel and dimed. Also, just one more real quick point. There's also the possibility of working with like a human actor and having a certain respect to the craft as it being like an art, and valuing the nuance of having a person behind the mic versus a formulated voice. Even if the voice, the synthetic voice, is amazing and gets the job done quickly and everything, kind of like, when you see like digital art versus when you see an oil painting in real life. The difference may be indistinguishable when you're looking at it like a photo or online, but one is actually more tangible. So there could be that respect. It could just, in the future, even if AI becomes amazing, or it's already kind of pretty amazing, even if it becomes indistinguishable from the human voice, I believe that there will be people who will appreciate, again, maybe even if it's just as an art form, appreciate the human aspect of it. It's like that hand, that that tangible kind of feel. So I apologize for that long-winded answer. It's just, that's definitely a big subject matter for, I think, a lot of industries.
No, absolutely. It is a very hairy topic, so
Yeah,
probably we can take an hour just to speak
yeah,
about
yeah,
that.
that's
What
right.
I noticed, and I'm really curious if in the States, these synthetic voices have become more and more, let's say, prevalent on at least on YouTube. I do see a lot of smaller commercials that have an AI synthetic voice, but funny enough, they are promoting like Asian products, so you can
Yeah,
tell that the photo,
yeah,
behind, has Chinese written
yeah,
all over it, and then the voice sounds really, British and so on. And it actually made me laugh this weekend. I was joking with my husband about these voiceovers. But yeah, I think that nowadays a lot of smaller businesses create videos with AI voice on top, which is, of course, an option that they can take. But I'm not that familiar with the field. However, I think that, as in any other field, there will be niches where the AI voice wouldn't be able to work that well. Like, bigger commercials for bigger companies, or animation or TV. I can't really imagine how it would be to listen to an AI voice for an hour or
sure.
so.
Yeah. And even if it does, I don't know if you or anybody watching has ever seen like the movie Her, with Scarlett Johansson and Joaquin Phoenix. Like in that movie, Scarlett Johansson's character, I forget her name at the moment, the character's name, but she's an AI, but she's, for all intents and purposes, you could think of her as a human because the way he interacts with her, and also the way she reacts and her emotions and everything is very real. So I mean, even if AI does get to the point where it's almost mimicking the human consciousness, there's always, kind of like you said, that sort of niche, whatever that niche be. There may be that niche where people just simply, just knowing, even if it's indistinguishable, even if it's so convincing that you don't know it's not a human, simply presenting something and saying that this is human may have its own nuance or appreciation. And I hope that is the case for myself.
I think so. I
Yeah.
think that this will be the commodity that you were talking about. And I think that long term, it would also, it's just my prediction that it would actually bring the prices up
Uh-huh.
and not down. We see this happening in the translation world as well, where
Uh-huh.
people are looking for humans and not, machines. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I guess we'll
Yeah,
see.
that's right. We'll see.
Perfect. Matt, I wanted to ask, in your experience, in voiceover work for documentaries you mentioned, or different types of content, how important it is to understand the cultural context behind the script, and how do you prepare when you have, let's say, an assignment that is more, you mentioned, history, you mentioned anthropology. How do you prepare?
Well, uh, to answer the first part of that question, I think it can definitely be very important knowing the cultural context, especially if two words are, spelled the same but have different meanings and or different pronunciations, which you see a lot of in English. Also, it kind of depends on the audience. If you're pronouncing something authentically, but your audience or the listener is a non-native speaker of that word's language of origin, then it sometimes becomes unfamiliar to the listener, such as like a simple word like Los Angeles. If we pronounce Los Angeles using the Spanish pronunciation, it's probably going to sound strange to somebody in the States, or even somebody who lives in Los Angeles who doesn't speak any Spanish. If you say Los Angeles, people are going to be like, that's not how you pronounce it. And in order to prepare for that, I definitely, I do talk with the producers a lot, or at least I request that they, whatever pronunciation they prefer, because they're the ones who decide the audience, or know the audience. Whatever pronunciation they want to go with, I ask them just simply to provide that. And then I do my research to kind of just double check and make sure that if they want the authentic version, the localized version of how it's pronounced, then I do my research and make sure I'm pronouncing it that way. If they want it as like the quote unquote like the American pronunciation, then I just ask them to let me know about that and kind of give me a sample of what they think is the American pronunciation. Because like the word jalapeno, most Americans will say jalapeno, which is relatively correct. But everyone, there are those people who will call it a jalapeno. So I just, it's important that I know what pronunciation they want. So that's my preparation.
I love that. And, I learned that, the states are very diverse and you pronounce things very differently
Yeah.
depending where you are. And I was actually smiling when you said Los Angeles because I heard people even saying Los Angeles. And I was like,
Oh, yeah.
okay, that's an extreme
Yeah.
pronunciation of of
Yeah.
the city name.
Right. Is there an I there with an accent at the end?
Exactly. So yeah, I imagine as many states as many pronunciations
Yeah.
of different words.
Yeah.
Matt, when I looked at your website, I saw some demo reels that really show a lot of versatility. And I wanted to ask, how do you adapt your tone or delivery when working with different brands or audiences?
Honestly, I just try to keep the read authentic and natural. And beyond that, I kind of depend on the project leads to give me direction if something doesn't match the local sensibilities. So if you say if I have to say you're welcome in another language, I'll say it my best, if I can pronounce it correctly and I'm interpreting it right, I'll say it my best, like and forgive me, I don't speak Tagalog, but at least I know the word salamat, thank you. I might say it like salamat, like thank you, you know, but that might be weird. So that I do try to talk to the producers and I'll read it a certain way and I'll just ask for their thoughts and if it's weird or not. So right off the bat, I try to be as natural as possible. If I know a certain word and I can pronounce it right and I do it well, I'll just read it my natural way. And if they say that's weird, retake it. I listen to their input, and that's pretty much the basics of it.
I love that. And on the funny side of things, nothing is more weird than me, working for an American company,
Uh huh.
writing with British spelling.
Uh huh.
And then even my intonation has changed a lot over the years.
Yeah.
I even met with some of my colleagues a few months back, and they're like, "Your intonation has changed a little bit,
Yeah.
although your pronunciation has not." So yes, it depends. I think where you
That's
live
right.
and what you have to interpret. And then I also have, the lovely opportunity to talk to, people in the States in different states, literally. So
Uh
I
huh.
get an exposure to different type of accents.
That's right.
Many of our listeners are translators. If someone is bilingual or even monolingual and curious about voiceover, what are the key differences between voice acting and simply reading a translation aloud?
Um, a pretty big difference, honestly, and that is voice acting. The acting part of voice acting really comes into play. Um, Somebody who may not have voice acting or just acting experience or know-how or background, if you simply read a script, it's going to sound kind of like when you're in school and somebody or yourself is asked to read aloud. It sounds very robotic and like you're kind of on the fly trying to figure it out, or very static. um, versus if you're actually voice acting, you're not just reading it, you're in it. So even if it's just so simple as like you're just a 30-year-old guy reading um, a script about physics, you have to sound genuine. You want to sound like you know what you're talking about. If you've never read anything, if you don't know anything about physics, you want to make it sound like you do know. So you don't actually have to learn physics to read it, but you have to sound interested and like you know what you're talking about. But if you don't have any sort of acting experience, it's just going to sound static. So again, kind of going back to that, like in school having to read aloud. If you can imagine that, that's how your audience will feel if you don't have any sort of voice acting experience or knowledge.
Yeah, I love that. And when I was thinking about voiceover after our initial discussion before the podcast, I was thinking that a little bit of training would also benefit a
Yeah.
lot the interpreters, because more than once we have to interpret different speeches, but also a lot of we have to mimic the
Uh-huh.
speaker's
Yeah.
tone, intonation. And I think that one of the keys to a successful interpreting is being able to mimic the speaker's tonality,
Sure.
voice, accent, and so on, and of course the terminology, but mainly the cadence of the words. So I think that even voiceover, or some, well, not necessarily voiceover, but some exercises, some activities, just being able to make a point while interpreting is really important. We all probably heard some interpreters on TV that sounded really plain,
Yes.
or didn't keep the same rhythm as the speaker, and that was really difficult to follow. So I feel that we have lots to learn as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Simply because, like, and this even goes for like non-translation kind of reading or voiceover. If you're constantly having to think with each word that you speak, like, am I mimicking this? If you have to on the fly constantly do that, it's going to sound forced, and it's not going to. You're going to constantly be questioning. It's just not going to sound good. But if you become familiar with it, and you simply subconsciously know that cadence and that rhythm and everything, things are going to sound more conversational because you're not constantly with every single word trying to mimic what it is. Mimicking will come naturally to you because you're familiar with that, if that makes sense. If that's a decent explanation.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And I wanted to ask, to go back to what I was saying about, the need for maybe some training or some exercises.
Uh-huh.
Um, would you recommend any training for a translator who wants to improve these abilities? Is there something that is online, or maybe not as advanced as voiceover,
Hmm.
maybe just to practice a bit these skills?
Sure. And as far as like it not having to be voiceover, I mean, an entry level voiceover class that's pretty accessible. And I will say, like, not just accessible from like a technological perspective, but accessible in terms of skill. Like, you don't have to be pursuing a career in acting to take a like an entry level voiceover class for beginners, and it doesn't have to be like a daunting thing. Also, from the technological side, most like voice actor studios and places that offer classes, a lot of them do offer it virtually, especially since COVID. It's very common. So it's both technologically accessible and uh, from a skill perspective accessible. But if you just simply don't, if you want to forego the formal training completely, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend, but if you just simply want some little habits or exercises to do, I always just suggest tongue twisters, and some really difficult ones, like the Jack jumped over the candlestick, things like that. The longer the better, because things that will trip you up the first probably 10, 15, 20, even 30 times you read something, um, it'll trip you up. But after a while, you'll get so good at the tongue twister that enunciation will sound perfect each time. And whatever tongue twister you read going down the line, you'll be better at. So what used to take you 20 or 30 tries, now you'll be able to master in probably 10 to 15 tries. So simply for exercises alone, tongue twisters, they're great. The more difficult, the better.
I love that. And I can send you, Matt, some really funny tongue twisters from
Okay.
here, from the UK, which are really,
Okay.
really funny to read. Um, yeah, definitely it took me a lot of practicing to get it right.
Fair enough.
Amazing. And let's talk a little bit about the technical side of things, because a lot of us interpret from home. Some of us do podcasting as well. What microphones would you recommend for interpreters working remotely or podcasting from home, especially on a budget? And let me just say this disclaimer: we're not doing promo for any brand. This is just, us having an informal conversation.
Sure. Well, that is kind of a difficult question because, not every mic is going to work for everyone. But I will say, at the very least, if I can give some advice on working at home in a decently treated space. It doesn't have to be like pro. You don't have to have all the fancy insulation, just simply a space where it's not super echoey. If you're working from home versus like a hotel room on your laptop, like a good USB mic, just as kind of a general base, I would say is the Neom, Neom USB, and that's made by SE Electronics, SE Electronics. Simply because it's a good quality mic, and it's one of the USB mics that sound closest to like a studio mic that I would recommend, because USB mics don't typically sound so good. So in terms of like travel mics, I would suggest that. And in regards to at home, that's really kind of where it becomes dependent on you. So like if you're a podcaster, I don't do podcasting, but I know a lot of podcasters use like a Blue Yeti, which I think may also be a USB mic, but it just kind of depends on what sound you want. If you want a warm tone, if you have a deep voice and you want something to really resonate with that, it really just comes down to your sound. If we're just speaking really generically, you can kind of see here, this is a boom microphone, which is like what they use in movies, like hanging above people. That's pretty universal, simply because its sole intent is just to capture the sound right in front of it and not capture the sounds out here. So that's probably a good place to start. Mine's a Shure brand, Shure. That's, like I said, that's relatively universal. But when it comes to like what sound you want, really what you're going for, if you want it really nuanced, that is going to depend on you. Yeah.
I love that. Thanks for sharing. Those are great options. And when it comes to soundproofing, because we talked about this, and a lot of the interpreters use soundproof equipment. What would you recommend? How can someone soundproof a room or create a recording safe home environment without breaking the bank?
Sure. Well, I mean, if you're not trying to make like voiceover your mainstay and like say that you have a professional studio, just simply to have a decent sound, you really could just use like clothes and blankets. If you can do your best to find like the smallest space possible, if you have a walk-in closet, that's perfect. Not everyone has a walk-in closet. So if you can create some sort of makeshift like area, like a corner in your room, and maybe just somehow hang some blankets behind you, that works pretty well. It's like I said, it may not be like studio quality, but at the very least, it'll dampen a lot of the echo sounds, and maybe even a little bit of outside noise. So some blankets and clothes can go a long way if you're able to kind of surround yourself with that. Even if you can, if you're like in a hotel room, this is just a really quick example. Like when I'm recording in a hotel room, quite often I'll get some sturdy pillows, some that aren't too floppy, and I'll get a corner of the room or whatever, and I'll literally just make a pillow fort around my head and the mic, and that can make all the difference in the world, just because you're reducing the space so there's not too much echoes, and they're pillows so they absorb a lot of the sound rather than it bouncing off. So, yeah, you can depending on the size of your space. Like I said, some clothes, blankets, and or pillows can go a long way.
I love that. I never thought that you can use the pillows that
Yeah.
way. So that
Yeah.
is really ingenious. What do you have around you? Is it like a small cabin, or what do you have around you to soundproof your environment?
So this is a walk-in closet, like I mentioned earlier. Like I personally am very particular about the way everything sounds. So wherever I live, be it an apartment, a house, whatever, one of the things I do look for is at least one walk-in closet, just because they make such great like makeshift studios. And I honestly, these like blue ones, or let me see, hold on. There we go. That blue one back there, um, or rather that blue one over here. Yeah, the bluish purple ones, they're just moving blankets like you use literally when you're trying to move your house. They're moving blankets, and you can, fold them for layers. That's really helpful. The more like studio-ish stuff behind me would be like these black curtains, because they're lined with vinyl, which is, rubber. So yeah, that's going to be a little bit more pricey. Nothing that breaks the bank, but that's what I have there. And then like directly behind me, which you can't see, or in front of me rather, I have some acoustic foam, which you've probably seen. It kind of looks like eggshells, or in my case, they look like triangles that just kind of zigzag. And the purpose of that mostly is just to catch any sort of prevent any sort of echoing. But if you want something that like literally prevents outside sound, you're going to need something dense, so that way it prevents like the lower frequency, like deep stuff, and that's where like the vinyl curtains come in handy. But yeah, I mean, even with my studio that, I am pretty proud of, it's nothing super fancy. I mean, like I said, moving blankets, the most expensive thing is probably those vinyl curtains, which you don't necessarily need, but moving blankets will go a long way. Acoustic foam, like those zigzag foam I was just talking about, those are relatively cheap. You can find them on Amazon or eBay. But yeah, again, kind of going back to my not breaking the budget thing, some blankets and some pillows, or in my case, foam, goes a long way. And I
I
apologize if
love
that was
that.
long-winded.
No, it was really, really informative. And, I might even try to buy something
Good
this weekend.
idea. Yeah.
You really convinced me with the walk-in wardrobe. That might be so fun.
Yeah, it honestly, it's also kind of just like a nice peaceful space. Like my space here, if you again, just depending on what level of treatment you want to do, I'm very particular about it. My space is so quiet that if you're not used to it, whenever I invite people in here and I just want to show off, I bring them in here, and they always say like the same thing, like it's so quiet, it's like almost creepy. Like you can hear like almost like the blood rushing in your head. Like you're not used to that sort of quietness. So again, that's just with a walk-in closet here, but not everything has to be that level of quiet. But yeah, a walk-in closet is super helpful if you want to have like a decent sounding studio.
I love that. What about software? I wanted to ask, do you have any software recommendations to edit voice? Not necessarily voiceover, but just to edit voice in general, if you had any
Yeah.
recommendations.
Pro Tools and Studio 6 are really good when it comes to editing. They're really intended for music, and they cost money. So if you don't want to use those, and they're not super expensive, but if you don't want to use those, Audacity is great. It's free. It's honestly really basic, but it gets the job done, especially if you know the great thing about Audacity is, unless you're like a professional musician, you don't need to record a bunch of tracks in Audacity. So it's really simple. You can just record one track, just do some cutting, which is pretty simple, and some like, a little bit of equalization, which is also pretty simple. So if you're going for the free option, Audacity, in my opinion, works really well. If you want a little bit better, but something that doesn't break the bank, I would say Pro Tools or Studio 6.
Got it. Amazing. And from a business point of view, how should someone build a voiceover portfolio, especially if they're transitioning from a non-acting background, like translation?
Sure. Well, you're asking the right person, because I did not have an acting background before this. And this may not work for everyone. And with just like with any industry, you're going to get some pushback. I just simply started with the relatively lower paying jobs, and maybe some other professionals may not agree with that, and I get it. I'm not trying to drive down rates. That's not what I'm ever trying to do. But you got to start somewhere, and not everyone's willing to take a gamble on somebody who you can kind of hear if it's not as professional as a professional studio. So it's good to just start somewhere, because you're literally getting the business experience, the acting experience, everything you can possibly imagine. You're only going to get from hands-on, no matter how many classes you take or whatever. Hands-on experience is going to be the best feedback you get, because if somebody doesn't like your sound, they're going to tell you. So if you want to just start doing like little simple jobs on like freelance websites, that's just a good place to simply start. I mean, yeah, definitely if you want to pursue it as a career, I would say start raising your rates, but it's just a good starting point. That's it. And, you don't have to cheapen yourself. It's just simply for you, it can be a learning experience on how to do voiceover and manage the business, because quite often as a voice actor or narrator or anything like that, you're everything. You're banking, or accounting, you're marketing, you're the actor, so nothing will give you better experience than doing the thing.
I love that. And what are some common mistakes beginners make when starting in the voiceover world, and how can they avoid them? Or maybe you have a story of, I don't know, a mistake or something that you regret or you wish you've done differently.
And this is something that not probably, it definitely applies to like any industry, but I think it especially applies to like the arts or entertainment. And that is, might have certain expectations, and it's really easy. For sure, your expectations aren't going to be what you actually experience. Um, so like in for instance, with me, like I just wanted to do character stuff. I just wanted to do animation. And when I started to do kind of commercial work, or even my mentor said, do some commercial stuff, I was a little disappointed because I didn't want to do that. It sounds so boring. Like even when I did visual arts, like graphic design at that time seemed really boring to me. I was like, I don't want to make signs. I don't want to just design signs or posters or whatever for like come and buy this at the car lot or whatever. So that the commercial side of things really seemed like uninteresting to me. But I would just suggest simply the biggest mistake anyone can make is just quitting. I mean, if you really don't like it and you really feel like it's not your cup of tea, don't force it. But if it is something you really want to pursue, don't quit because it didn't match your expectations. You might really find that you enjoy it. Like I said earlier, I approach everything as character work. So even when I'm doing like something that could be considered boring, to me, it's just kind of playing pretend. So it really, you just kind of adapt to it, and it just depends on how much you want to be in the industry. Again, if it's not, if you really don't like it, don't force it. But if you do want it, it's just a matter of changing your perspective.
I love that. And you know what, Matt? I'll tell you another funny story.
Hmm.
And I don't agree. Commercials are not boring at all. I remember the first time I traveled
Thank
to
you.
the US,
Uh-huh.
I couldn't sleep, yeah, because of the jet lag.
Uh-huh.
So I was wide awake at 4 a.m. So I turned on the TV,
Hmm.
and I've never heard such commercials voiceover in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
Uh-huh.
your commercials in the States are next level, I tell you. I think I
Uh-huh.
listened to commercials for 1 hour straight, and
Really?
then
Okay.
I couldn't go back to sleep. It was so good, really. So definitely very different than commercials in Europe, for sure. Very
Okay.
entertaining.
All right. I mean, I've definitely come to appreciate things. So I nowadays would definitely agree with you. Like, yeah, commercials can be very entertaining, and if you start to enjoy acting, you'll find a lot of fun in commercials.
Yes, I love that. I even remember seeing Chuck Norris in commercials, and I was wondering, Oh, now I see where Chuck Norris went.
Uh-huh.
So
He
that was
wasn't
fun.
he wasn't just in the jokes, he's in commercials.
Yeah, he's in commercials exactly. So he
Yeah.
was definitely doing his own voiceover.
Uh-huh.
That was fun. So we've come to the last question, Matt. I want to ask, do you think that being multilingual is an asset in the voiceover industry? And I'm sure that in the States, there's a lot of work if you are bilingual English and Spanish. But I'm just
Mhm.
curious what you think about that and how translators or voiceover actors can leverage their language skills to stand out.
Oh yes, absolutely. It's not a necessity. I'm not somebody who can like I can speak Spanish but not fluently. So it's something I am practicing and trying to get better at. But yes, if you can speak another language or multiple languages, you're absolutely an asset. Like when I was just in Paris, I went to a Disney 100-year celebration, and one of the cool things they had was a video where you put on your headset and you can hear and choose what language you want in real time. So you're listening to like the characters sing, and you can press English and then you can press Dutch or a Spanish or French, and while the song is going, you're hearing it's transitioning, and they'll find somebody who sounds exactly like that. But if you're one person and you can speak all of those languages, I can definitely see and tell you how beneficial that would be, simply because they say, oh man, this song's really good, you sound great in English, we're looking for a Spanish voice actor. I can do that, and if you can do that fluently, uh, you're solid. So you just booked two jobs just simply by being bilingual, and not only that, but like just separate jobs. Quite often I see stuff, they'll somebody will be requesting something like Urdu, and I can't speak that, but if you're multilingual, the more languages you have, yeah, the more options you have. So not a necessity, but definitely can be an asset.
I love that. And yes, dubbing is huge, especially in non-English countries. I used to live in France as well, so all the movies, all the series,
Mm-hmm.
all the commercials were dubbed, and it's the
Uh-huh.
same for, or I mean, not even dubbed. I think they probably had voiceover artists, as you mentioned, doing not only the songs but also the text part of it. So it's huge in Europe.
Yeah, and I definitely want to give some respect and shout out to all of those like actors who dub the like English actors, or the other way around. Like, there's even like a short documentary about this. Like there's somebody who is like the voice of George Clooney, and that person, they have to act. Every movie that George Clooney is in, overseas, that guy is George Clooney, and he had to bring the same acting skill set that George Clooney brought and dub it. So he had to copy the mouth movements, read the words, and act all at the same time, because dubbing's a hard thing. So yeah, huge respect to anybody who does dubbing, especially like live action, because animation is like like this versus real people. Your lips are in different shapes, your tongues are in different shapes, and everything. So yeah, big respect to dubbing actors.
Absolutely. We're way past one person doing all the roles
Uh-huh.
in one movie to having special voices for certain actors, which is really fun,
Yeah.
for sure, and makes things really, really interesting. Amazing, Matt. This was such a special episode. I found it particularly interesting because I didn't know too much about voiceover, and I'm sure my audience didn't. And I feel we learned so much this hour. So I find it really fascinating. Thank you so much for your generosity in sharing, different advice and sharing your experience. I will add all. Your social media profiles, your websites to the YouTube description so that people can, go ahead and follow you, as well as, if you are in the States or someone who needs voiceover. So Matt's your person. So please contact him. Matt, any final thoughts?
No, I just want to say thank you so much, Daniela. This has honestly been a really great experience. It's honestly fun for me to just talk about voiceover. Not a lot of people ask these sort of questions, so I've had a good time, and I very much appreciate. I feel very honored to be on your show. So, it for me it's almost selfish. It's not just like a generous thing, like you said. It's like it's very indulgent for me. I just like talking about it, and it's I very much appreciate the experience here. So thank you.
You're most welcome, and this has been really great. We're thrilled to have you, and I hope that this episode will reach as many people as possible. So if you're listening or watching, please, like, subscribe, and share the episode so that it reaches as many people as it can. Thanks all. Thanks, Matt.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye-bye.